don't. I don't want you all to think that Martha and I think that we have some magic knowledge that you don't have. What we have is maybe we have some experiences you haven't had. We might have had clients you haven't yet had. You will have them. And also to know that what I think we have and what we all need to make sure we keep is the ability to reflect on what the heck it is we're doing every day, because it changes. And if we don't think about what we're doing, we will do a bad job. And to think about what it is that you bring of yourself to that lawyer-client relationship. Unlike Martha, I probably didn't come up middle class. I'm the first person in my family, well, maybe the first, close to the first, there's one other, to go to college, the first person to have an advanced degree, the first person in my family to, well, our family, my nuclear family, was the first person in our extended family to have indoor plumbing. I mean, we were really posh. But we also had to leave the reservation to get it, so there was a big trade-off there. But what I learned from that is when I sit down with my clients, they don't know that about me. I don't know a whole heck of a lot like that about them. When I sit down with other lawyers, with any of you, I don't know any of that about you either. And you don't know that about me, and it's going to influence how we interact, whether we want it to or not. So I have to be aware of that. Lately in my practice, I have been dealing with more cases that involve the Violence Against Women Act and housing. What that has required me to do is to examine what I thought I knew and what I do know and what I am learning about what happens in family dynamics where there's violence involved, because I had no experience with that at all. For my colleagues who do family law, it's like every day for them, and I don't know how they do it. But for me to talk to somebody about solving their housing problem and to have the family violence issue be the issue was hard enough. Then to have them make choices that I wouldn't necessarily understand, and I don't understand sometimes, in that at times I can say, this is what you need to do in order for us to save your housing. We basically have to throw the abuser overboard. For you and your child to retain assisted housing, subsidized housing that you can afford because your income is $437 a month, we have to throw him overboard. And if you can't do that, I can't save your housing. And to have them choose not to, and for me to have to then understand that, so what do we do next with our representation? So I can't save your housing. Maybe I can give you advice about how to save your life. Maybe I can give you some advice about when things get really dangerous tomorrow or the next day, how to save your child. And what do I do about that? And what are my sort of implanted judgments about that? So it changes every day. One of the things that we talked about is what things our clients have as loosely referred to as poverty skills. Some of these things I wouldn't know how to do at all. My clients know how to do this. Think about that when you're talking with your clients. They may not know how to do some things you're going to ask of them, and you may be able to teach them that because they need it for survival, but they also know a whole lot of survival skills that we don't have or we don't know they have. I think for those of you who are glued to your phone all day, just the fact that you might not have a phone might be the most shocking thing. The other thing that I think is just impossible for me to understand sometimes, because I get very impatient, is how people have to wait in line for everything. You have to wait in line at the welfare office, you have to wait in line in the lawyer's office, you have to wait in line at school to get your kids registered. You have to wait in line, and then when you do get to the front of the line, you have to tell the same story over and over and over. And very often it's not a pretty story, so you get to repeat it. And then, if you're very lucky, you'll get whatever the prize is. Sometimes I think it's much like waiting online in Russia. You wait online, and when you get to the front of the line, it really isn't giving away bread at all. What we bring into that lawyer-client relationship are assumptions maybe that people have these kinds of skills, and they maybe don't have them. So we have to know that so that we can work out some kind of arrangement that will allow us to get what we want out of the legal system or some other bureaucracy we're dealing with. And to know that our client doesn't necessarily have these, or don't assume that they have them. I have not just one calendar, but because I'm very anal retentive, I have 3. None of them are electronic, except, well, one of them is. The other 2 are on paper. For me, my clients don't have a calendar at all. Very often, I will give my clients a calendar, and then, if they're lucky, they have a place to put it, and they have a pen, and they can keep it. Don't assume that. The kinds of assumptions we make are going to undermine our own representation if we make them. Clients don't necessarily have a great filing system. My filing system at home is definitely more woeful than my one in the office, but at least I have a home where I can make a pile of paper that needs to be filed. When we see our clients who are living in poverty have those skills because what they are doing is they're living in a constant state of crisis. You can't really relax. There's no sort of genteel poverty in the kinds of clients we're serving. It's not like, well, you just don't have enough to go to the movies. You don't have enough money to eat. You don't have access to things you need. You don't have transportation. These are all things that we all know, but we have to remember what the outcome of those lacks are, and that kind of crisis, tension, and anxiety wears on you physically and emotionally. And if possible, we ought not to make our time with them working on whatever it is we have as a legal problem worse. Let's not try to increase the anxiety. Let's be cognizant of these things. These things are not going to be surprises to you if you think about it, but these are all sort of the sort of side effects. These are if you live in those, what was the phrase Tim used, the disamenity neighborhoods? I love that word. It sounds like something that bureaucracy would make up, and I can't wait to use it. The disamenities. But if you have none of those amenities, you have these kinds of things in your life, and you're vulnerable to these things, and they're going to make your life harder. And they may be the things that drive you to the lawyer's office for whatever advice that we have. So they get there, and hopefully they don't have to wait a long time in line, and you get them in your office, and you've got to figure out how to communicate. And it's not like poor people speak another language, but it is like poor people do speak another language. They probably speak English, and you're speaking lawyer. We're using long words, we're using long sentences, we're talking about things, we talk in a hurry. When I see, at some points, I see people in community clinics where what I am there for is to give them 10 minutes of advice about their case, which is they are going to be evicted in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, after talking to me, they will rise from that chair, go into housing court, and they will be evicted because we don't have any money and we don't have any defenses. So what can I tell them in 10 minutes in language they can understand that is going to make the outcome better? It's not like the outcome is going to be we get to stay. The outcome is you're going to be moving in 7 days or less. You can ask for a stay of the writ of restitution. Thank you and goodbye. And that, if it was delivered that way, that's just going to send them reeling. That didn't even come across in English to most people. So we have to know how to communicate. We have to remember that we're communicating to people who are in crisis, and we're giving them pretty much routinely bad news. And when we're not, if it's something we can work on, then we still have to remember that the kinds of language that we use have to be tailored to the people we're talking to. You can see that there's a huge language disparity, probably linked directly to your success in school, but we're not going to be able to educate you in the 25 minutes we have with you in that first appointment, so let's just tone it down so we can talk about it. These things, you know, I think I should have it printed above my computer when I'm doing word processing. And my secretary, God bless her, usually will send things back to me where she says, I don't really know who you're talking to in this paragraph, but it's not going to make any sense, so start over. Without that, if we're doing it verbally, we have to just remember this. When I'm working with clients, and when you're going to be working with low-income clients, either in a group, because they're going to come and tell you what they want in that, that redevelopment plan, or they're going to come and tell you what they need from the lawyer that's going to save their housing in Mount Holly. Having to convince clients that I'm a lawyer and I'm here to help you is kind of a long shot. Perhaps not. You might be a lawyer. I'm not sure you're here to help me. And the last time I had a lawyer, boy, they didn't help me one bit, and I have no idea whether you're going to do it or not. It's not going to be possible for us to develop the kind of relationship we need if we don't agree on what the goals are and what it is you need and what I can do for you. And those goals may not be what I think you need. They may not be what I would do if I were going to make those choices. But our clients drive those choices, just as if it were a paying client, they drive the choices. But also, a paying client pays for your advice. So don't let them make stupid choices out of ignorance. If he was giving you $100 for your advice, you wouldn't let him. So give your client advice and pros and cons and the risks, and then they will make the decision they make. I had a client who got relocation benefits, and we worked very hard to get relocation benefits when his SRO hotel was being torn down. And he got benefits that were supposed to help him find housing for, and pay for housing for a year, which is how the law works, and that's great. And he got the money, and it wasn't going to make it for a year because part of what he spent the money on was a really great pair of blue cowboy boots. And they were swell boots because they were really nice boots. These were snakeskin boots. They were blue, which wouldn't have been my first choice. And probably, you know, if I had no housing for 12 months, I could only pay for housing now for 9, it wouldn't have been my first choice to get cowboy boots. But that's also because I have a whole closet full of shoes. And he really had always wanted those cowboy boots, and he saw them in the window shots lines for at least 3 or 4 months before he got the money and he bought it. He was willing to come and bring me the boots and show me, I think because we had established that lawyer-client trust. He also said when he was getting them out of his bag, I know you're not going to think this was a good idea. And he was right. It wasn't the best idea, but they were really nice boots. So these sorts of things we know. One of the things that I think is interesting is we're very often told, you know, establish eye contact with your client. Remember, as Martha said, that there may be some cultural issues there. That could really freak out some clients. There are people, if I'm meeting with Native American elders, I know not to do that. It's rude. They will tell my grandma, and then there will be trouble. So no, I don't do that. So know those things, but also there are things that we do, and it's the same things you would do with a paying client, but you might want to also be aware of the cultural differences with a paying client. A paying client from a Muslim background might not shake hands with me because I'm a woman. He might use my lawyer services, but he won't do that. I find that my clients and I both have a certain amount of suspicion about the legal system. We find that it's hostile to our needs and unresponsive at times. I have to be fairly selective in how I share that I share that feeling with them, but I need to recognize that that is often how they have experienced the system and how they see it. It doesn't necessarily inspire their faith in me if they think I think so too, but in telling them how we're going to deal with the legal system, I think it's always better to be honest with them about it and say, you know, it ain't great, and here's what's likely not going to work real well, and here's what's not going to be respectful to you, and I can protect you from some of that, and the rest, we're just going to have to suck it up and wait for our turn to talk. Better I should tell them than it come as a surprise. Definitely better that it not come as a surprise. One of the things that Martha noted here is that a court isn't like Judge Judy. Conciliation court is kind of like Judge Judy, but it's not nearly as much fun. But court where I'm representing clients, or where you're going to be representing your clients, low-income clients, remember that if they've not been in the court system before, that may be their only experience. Or their only experience, if you're going into a civil court, might have been criminal court, and it's way different than criminal arraignments, which is just like cattle call, but with punishment. And it's different, and you have to prepare them. The best thing I think you can do is I always go early to court, or go to a court if it's a new court for me, to watch it. If you can take your clients there so they can watch it ahead of time, that's great. I always like to know where to stand before I get there so that I don't do the wrong thing. It really helped to not be the person who broke the microphone in Judge Rosenbaum's courtroom, but it was the other attorney, because she hadn't come ahead of time to see that you don't touch the microphone, it adjusts with a button. I wouldn't have known that, but I went the day before and watched her break it, so I didn't break the microphone. My clients, if they can go and see it, will be more comfortable, and they'll do a better job. As Martha noted, everybody's clients kind of doesn't respond when you want them to. They disappear. You don't know how to reach them. If you have low-income clients, it's worse. Phones get turned off. Voicemail boxes get full. Temporary phones go dead. There are some services for low-income clients in Hennepin County. I don't know if it's in other counties where they can get free voicemail service, but those mailboxes fill up fast. They can't fax things to you because fax is expensive. So figuring out how to work around those things rather than assuming that it's real easy. Because very often if you just tell your client, well, fax that to me and I'll see it on Tuesday when I get back to the office, and you're gone, and they don't feel comfortable enough to say, I don't have $1.50 to fax. I don't know where to go to fax. I don't speak English, so when I go to the Kinko's, they don't talk to me. All of those things might be happening. So figuring out how to communicate ahead of time. And don't assume you're going to get a quick turnaround. If I have some of my clients who are homeless, I have to leave a message at the shelter, but it's a shelter where they're only there between 7 at night and 7 in the morning, so they're not going to see it till 7 o'clock tonight. It's Friday. They won't be able to make a call until the library opens at 10 o'clock on Monday, and then they'll be able to call me. But if the library isn't open on Monday because it's President's Day, then it'll be Tuesday, and by then, whatever the settlement was I needed to talk to them about has expired. So you have to kind of be very strategic in how you plan communications. The same thing with keeping appointments. I learned a dreadful lesson by scheduling a client 3 or 4 times for Friday afternoon until finally my interpreter told me the reason he's not coming to the appointment is because he's in prayer on Friday afternoons. Well, if he'd been Jewish, I would have known what he was doing on Friday, but he was Muslim and I didn't know that. I had to apologize and be embarrassed, but better that than pretend it didn't happen. But he didn't feel comfortable enough to tell me when I'd scheduled the appointment for Friday at 4 o'clock. He just dutifully accepted that because I'm the person with all the power, and went away and then couldn't make it. It's just embarrassing, so just don't do it. Figure out how to do that. It's not the only time I've been embarrassed, but it was one of the many. I also scheduled an ESL interpreter once for someone who needed an interpreter, but I learned then that not all people who use nonverbal communication speak ESL, because I paid $60 for an interpreter who didn't work. Sometimes I learn these lessons the hard way. Inquire about which nonverbal language they speak. There's a tip for you. So help people keep appointments. Remember that they're not going to be able to find you. If it's hard, give directions, bus directions. If you don't take the bus, remember to look at it so that you know how long it's going to take. Remember time of day. Make sure that people can call you for directions. Minneapolis seems easy to find your way around in because I work there, but it's not, based on my client's experience. The last thing we wanted to give you was advice about services and resources that you can use. If you have low-income clients and you have questions about representing them on things that legal services does, call Martha or me. Call any legal services attorney, any legal services office. We talk to private attorneys all the time who are taking volunteer cases. We talk to public defenders all the time. Very often attorneys call us because they want to know, I'm going to work out this great arrangement for settling this case. It's a low-income person. Is this going to affect their housing, their benefits, their Social Security, their Medicare? The answer is almost always yes in some way. If you're a public defender and you're about to take a plea, you may now just be shooting them in the foot for the future for any kind of subsidized housing, so we might want to talk about that plea. Call us. In your packet, we gave you some referrals and resources. There are a couple good tips from the VLN office about collateral consequences. And remember that we don't have all the answers, but we'd be happy to talk to you about the problems. Anything else? And we only kept you a little bit late. I'm sorry. Our contact information is here. I think it's in this, the big handout. And call or write. We'd be happy to hear from you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience. It was a remarkable day. I thoroughly enjoyed it myself. If you have questions, I'm sure they will stay, and you can come down and speak with them individually. But we truly appreciate your coming, and for those of you who are judging for the competition, we bow down to you. You are saints.
Fabulous.
So take care, be careful.